Well, hello there, YouTube. I gotta take this here 2010 Spyder RT for a little freeway run. See if I can make a particular leak reappear. And I didn't feel like riding alone, so I figured I'd take my buddies with me, which would be you guys. Now if I can get past this oil drum up here, we'll be doing real good. This could be sketchy at best. Made it though. Didn't run over any customers. Didn't knock any fenders off. What you building there, young Norm?
What's that?
So what you building?
A little bit of Polaris. And I tell you about that, people coming around that turn, it's sketchy. There's young Zach coming out there behind me. I thought he was about to test ride a quad, not a motorcycle. So it looked like this at home. And it is supposed to rain today, but it's just, you know, kind of those passing nasty clouds that happen. Oh my Lord, you always get somebody up here that has to wait until there's like the ultimate opening spot before they pull out. But anyway, it was nice and sunny at the house, but it literally dumped all night long and everything was soaking wet. So I walked out to the dirt road there, and yeah, I wasn't riding any motorcycle. Any motorcycle I would have rode would have been a mess, including the Spyder, because those big holes out there fill up with water, and you gotta drive through it. And with the Spyder, there's holes within the holes. I'm pretty sure I know where they're at, but if I miss, I do a nosedive on that thing. Doesn't hurt anything, it just, and you don't see it, it's underneath, but the idea of scuffing that thing up irritates me, especially if it's not my bike, you know. That trucker full on ran that red light. That light had to be red before he got to it. It was green as he was coming through. So this is one of the, well, this is the original Spyder RT, the 2010 models. And anyway, he had a bit of an oil leak, but it was pretty grossly overfilled with oil, which is a big no-no on these things. The crankcase breather comes out of the rear cylinder head and goes directly up to the air box. It's got Oetiker clamps, you know, one of the high quality clamps that hold them down, but it doesn't work very well as a oil storage unit, that hose, and it weeps out. Plus the fact that it's pushing that up into your air box, which is not cool. So he had sprayed a whole bunch of oil down the rear cylinder, down the left hand side, which rolls down and drips right behind the front pulley. So somebody unsuspecting would also think that they have a countershaft seal leaking. So it had already leaked a bunch of oil, and when I checked it, it was at least 300 cc's, maybe more, overfilled with oil. So who knows how it started. That thing could have been a quart over, because it was pushing some oil out of that area. And these things, you guys, familiar with KTM's and Rotax engines. I don't know what it is about engines made in Austria. They just naturally seem to have weeps. They weep at gaskets, they weep at seals. And it's not a leak, it's just a weep. They're just, wet enough that dust collects to it. And they all do it, so it's not a threat. So, this one had old residue that was left over from the previous owner that probably overfilled at a time or two. You get carried away on a trip, or temperatures. There's such a specific way of checking the oil on these things, and they don't follow it. One of the biggest mistakes people make is, they're about to go on a big ride and they want to check their oil, and they'll check it cold. The bike's been sitting there a couple of days or a couple of weeks, who knows. Well, the oil bleeds out of the tank back into the engine, and you get a grossly low reading. I mean, not even touching the dipstick. So first thing to do is start adding oil to them, and very quickly overfills them. These things absolutely cannot be over the full mark. I personally, if I had one, I would do just like you do on the Yamaha Roadstars that do the same thing. Full temp, go through the procedure of, letting it idle for a while and then shut it off and check it. Is filled halfway on the stick, halfway between add and full. It's funny that people, they look at that stick and they see that thing down towards the add line and freak out. Oh my god, it's doing damage to my... I think this Honda's like really rushing here. I'm gonna let him go. Little minivan back here rolling up on me. Or actually it's a little car. But anyway, they freak out, the engine damage, all this stuff. These things, well actually the SE5s, the semi-automatic, actually it's more of an automatic clutch. But anyway, the SE5 models, when they get about 2.5 quarts low, they hold a total of about 5 quarts. During the oil change, it's anywhere from 4.2 to 4.5 quarts to get her back to the full line. So anyway, when they're about 2.5 quarts low, the HCM, or the hydraulic control module, which controls the shifting, it's electronically triggered, but the physical act is being performed by oil pressure. When these servos move, they allow pressure to flow through, and it executes an upshift or downshift. But that's why they won't shift when they're not running. But anyway, it has its own pump, its own oil pump, and apparently that pump starves before the rest of them, because when it's about 2.5 quarts low, they start doing the most random shifting. I mean, really random. They won't downshift all the way when you come to a light, whether automatically or manually. People find themselves taking off from a stoplight in 3rd gear, and with a centrifugal clutch, you can only imagine the joey slip clutch that goes on with that little action. And then they won't, smoothly execute an upshift. They'll push several times, and all of a sudden it just, wham, it'll go into gear or shift to the next gear when they least expect it. Then they come in, oh, my transmission's all messed up. You check in there and you look down in the oil drum and you say hello, and you get an echo back. Hello. And usually about 2.5 quarts later, she's at the full mark. Of course, by that point, the lower volume of oil breaks down quicker. That is one of the other things I want to mention too. Is when I say an engine can be really low on oil and still be perfectly safe. the danger is, and one of the criteria of determining how much oil an engine should have in it in any given time is it needs to have enough volume of oil to last an oil change interval. It doesn't necessarily have to be that much oil to run. To give you an example, back when I was racing the Honda V4s, my 750 and 1000s, we would purposely run with, they held 4 quarts of oil. We'd run them with 2 quarts of oil. And shit, you'd gain, you know, it was a wet sump engine, so, you know, everything was bathing in the oil at all times. You know, this is a dry sump, so the engine only has enough oil in it to serve its purpose. The rest of it's sitting in the tank. Anyway, by doing that, there was less drag on the motor from bathing in the oil, and we'd gain about 8 to 10 miles an hour down the straightaways. But I would literally change the oil, you know, after each race weekend, because a lower volume breaks down quicker. So there's a little bit of knowledge for you. And really, if you don't see the oil pressure light on, you got enough oil to run it. But if you see the oil pressure light, that is never a good sign. That means you are grossly low, and your oil pump or pumps, as there are in a lot of motorcycles, there's multiple pumps. That pump just grabbed a mouthful of air. That's why your low oil pressure sensor just went off. And your oil light coming on is not telling you are low on oil. Some bikes do it. I know old Yamahas used to do it. They had both an oil pressure and an oil level sensor. But all of them, like this thing, that's an oil pressure sensor. If you trigger an oil pressure sensor, you are grotesquely low on oil. Like less than a quart, most likely. Now that's pretty dangerous. You want to avoid that. So these things, you know, like when I do an oil change on them, by the time I'm done, you know, I'm usually doing a service. If it's just an oil change, it's a much quicker process because you can change the oil and have the new oil in while it's still warm. And it gets up to temperature, you know, really quick. But if it's a cold engine, like during a service, you know, you're going to fire it up cold, so you need to get it up to temperature. And it's usually, you know, I like to let them go, you know, 15-20 minutes, let the fan cycle a couple of times. Of course, I'm in a controlled environment. There's no air going through the radiators, so, you know, the fan cycling twice, it's, you know, it's getting pretty close to temperature. And usually after the second fan cycle, you're at the right temperature. You know, I usually around 135 degrees. I take a laser temperature gun and measure the temperature of the. For you Harley guys, it's an oil bag. For everybody else, that's just the oil tank for the dry sump. But have the tank at 135 degrees. I shut it off, let it set, you know, approximately a minute, not much over, and check it. And these, you screw the dipstick in to check them, and add it to the full or just below the full line. And these twins, they use an old Honda patent that actually swirls in the combustion chamber, actually swirls the oil around and burns it on purpose. So rule of thumb on these things, they go through about a half a quart every 1,200 miles, roughly thereabouts. So on a trip, you do need to check them. It's nothing's wrong with your motor. It's doing what it's supposed to do. By consuming that oil, it makes these things live a long time. It's almost working like leaded fuel did, you know, as a buffer on your valve train. That's why, you know, as long as you don't, you know, put a dirt sucking K&N air filter in there, these things, the valves are usually right on check. Wow, I can tell I aligned this thing before. This was a used one we took in, and this is the new owner having this issue. But every new one that comes out of a crate, or every trade-in that we get, I do the laser alignment. It's really rare to drive one of the early models and it not literally scare you going down the road. They feel nervous, almost like you're riding on ice. That's the best way I can describe it. I mean, it literally, whoa, makes you pucker up a little bit. And it's the best way to know if your Spyder's aligned correctly is you're not thinking about the bike doing anything. It's like you're riding a two-wheeler. The gyro effect of the wheels, you know. You're just going along for the ride. Nothing weird happens. But these RTs with all the bags and everything on them, they are prone to. What are you doing here, people? They are prone to get tossed around in the wind. These two guys in these little sedans back here got themselves a little race or something going on. And just pulled over and let them have their way. I think they're having words with each other going down the road here. Oh yeah, windows are down. Cool. We might get a road rage action going on here. I don't know if you can see that through the mirrors, or if the camera's even at the right angle to see through the mirrors. But them two were a little pissed off at each other. Inside it. Life in the city. This isn't, you know, this is nothing like LA or anything like that. This is just the greater Portland area, I guess you could call it. Those German against Japanese are. Didn't have a whole lot. I was just gonna take you guys along for a ride. I do see rain coming down in spots over there. Looks like I'm fairly safe for the moment. But that's definitely rain right there. Hopefully that's not over the store. But yeah, if I'd have rode, I'd have got wet anyway. Because at some point it is supposed to rain today. But that doesn't mean, you know, there's no guarantee. It can rain on a 0% chance of rain around here. It happens all the time. Things just have a way of sneaking in. Little microclimates and whatnot. I have to say, this thing is insanely smooth and quite damn comfortable. It's amazing how, you know, initially there was, you know, a lot of, you know, warning lights getting triggered and all kinds of weird things. It was just, there wasn't really anything wrong with them. It was just firmware glitches and whatnot. A lot of ghosts going on through this insanely complicated CAN bus system these things have. But with some firmware updates, they're all very reliable, and man, when they're aligned, they are quite fun. Seriously, almost every one of these things that comes in is, you know, not one that we've done an alignment on, and a lot of them are, I've never had any problems, I'm not going to pay you to align my Spyder, there's nothing wrong with it, you know. Then you take it for a ride after a service, and you go, yeah, you need alignment. That thing is downright scary. It's fine with me. They're just trying to get some money out of me or something. They don't say that, but I can't talk them into it. You know, and I'm not one of these guys that's gonna, you know, try to force you into believing you need to throw money at me. I just tell them it's going to be a different ride, and the ones that do it will literally come back or call or something and go, oh my god, I had no idea that that thing was handling bad. Until they ride it after a laser alignment, and they just freak out. They go, holy crap. It is a whole nother bike. Just like this one is just rock solid steady. There's no nervousness to it, you know. The very first Spyder I rode was one of the originals, an 08 GS. And man, that thing must have been out of alignment. I thought, who in the hell would ever buy one of these things? That thing skates around, scares the crap right out of you. And then, you know, we know some were out of alignment, you know, based on tire wear and stuff like that. The only way to align them was, you know, BRP has this elaborate, you know, bar and laser method that aligns the frame, and they are using lasers, that aligns it, the front wheels to the frame. Well, it needs to be aligned perfectly to the rear wheel, and the way the laser alignment thing works, it's you're measuring between these plates that are roughly a 13 feet apart, so you're getting within a gnat's behind of dead accurate. And I don't accept anything but absolute perfect alignment. You know, and at first that took me forever. I mean, God, I think I spent an hour and a half, 2 hours on these things. But I learned the little nuances and whatnot of I used to, you know, recheck toe in when I was done, and I've got a little procedure that is so exacting. I don't even recheck toe in afterwards. I know it's right. I know for a fact it's right. It's just literally wasting my time to check it. And if, you know, you do your math right and you have that thing lined up to the front wheels lined up to that rear wheel at a given spec, by doing that, you naturally set the front toe end to the desired toe end. Works really well. The alignment on these things reminds me of having the carb sync like on my old 83 Yamaha Venture. Them things are never happier than when you do a nice digital carb sync with these new fancy gauges. Man, does it make a different bike. Those bikes are so sensitive to exact carb sync. Well, these things are the same way with alignment. The nice thing is, you know, unless you bounce the thing off a wall somewhere, or, you know, drop it into a manhole somewhere, they stay. I rechecked the alignment on that demo I had last year after, what, I have 7,300 miles on it, and it was absolutely spot perfect. Freaked me out, because I'd hit, you know, you hit obstacles and whatnot every once in a while. Whose idea was it to lay that right in the middle of the damn thing like this? There's no nails in that thing. I mean, seriously, that's our path coming through here. Why would you lay that right in the middle? It probably wasn't one of us that done it. Bam! Alright, so I didn't keep track of the miles there, but I know that was at least 18 miles, maybe 20. That's enough to see if she's gonna leak, I reckon. So anyway, thanks for coming with me on an otherwise boring test ride. And I hope I didn't bore you too much with my never-ending babble. We'll chit-chat with you later. Take care now. Bye-bye.